Hi, and welcome to the Doobert Transport Coordinator training. We're going to walk through all the various aspects of what it means to be a transport coordinator today. And then we're going to give you a quick demo of the Doobert software, a lot of which you've probably seen in the other videos, but we'll recap just to make sure it all makes sense. And don't worry, this entire presentation will be made available to you, so just sit back and enjoy, no need to take copious notes. So before we get started, it's always important to feel free to ask questions. Obviously, you can't ask questions to a video, so I would invite you to please send us an email to tc@Doobert.com. We'll be talking about that as we go through. There's a lot of information in here and it may seem overwhelming, but we're here to support you. That's what we're trying to do. We're all volunteers and we're all united by a passion for animals. We invite you to share and network and market to get us more volunteers, more coordinators, more monitors. We always need more people involved, so be sure to tell your friends and your family and your colleagues. The more people we have, the more successful we'll be. So let's talk about our agenda. First, we're going to go through some Transporting 101. What does it mean? What are transports all about? What are the various types of transports? Then we're going to talk about the legal requirements. There are some legal requirements just like anything else, but don't worry, it's not overwhelming, and again, we'll walk you through step by step. Next, we're going to talk about how to plan your transport route as a transport coordinator. What are the ways that you can do it using tools like Google Maps? And finally, we'll dive into the Doobert software and show you how easy and simple it makes to do these transports right within Doobert. As I mentioned, we're going to make the slides available to you, so no need to worry about that. We'll get you added to the Doobert sandbox so you can play and set up your own transports. There's nothing like a little bit of hands-on to make sure you'll be successful. And you can always ask questions. Email us at tc@Doobert.com. We're here to support you. So before we go too much further, I want to introduce myself. My name is Chris, and I'm the founder of Doobert.com. I am very excited to be able to provide this to you and be able to provide this training to you to get more people involved. Animal rescue is one of my passions. I got into rescue back in 2007 actually as an animal rescue transporter myself. I'm a pilot on the weekends for fun, and I kept saying there's got to be a better way to do this, and lo and behold, Doobert was born. Launched it about a couple years ago, and Doobert has continued to grow, and it's so exciting to be a part of being able to enable so many volunteers and rescues saving animals. So I'm very excited. You can always reach out to me. As I tell people, it's my software, so I can do whatever I want, but I'm always looking for great ideas and suggestions on what you like, what you don't like, what works, what doesn't. That's how I can continue to make it better. And the whole goal of Doobert is to help you save time so that you can save more animals. So, with that, let's talk about a little bit of Transporting 101. So when you think of the word transport, what do you think of? You think of particularly a long distance, you're moving something. There's different types of transports in the animal rescue industry. There's transports that are from shelter to shelter. There are transports that are done for medical reasons. Sometimes animals need to be moved to have a procedure done. There's transports that are going to or from a rescue. There's over 20,000 animal rescues in the United States alone. And sometimes animals will need to be moved from a shelter that doesn't have any more space to a rescue. Sometimes they're moving from a rescue to a rescue. And then ultimately, we're hoping that they're moving to an adopter, to their permanent forever home. So sometimes there are transports that are going from a rescue or a shelter, but they're going to the ultimate adopter. Like a lot of other things in life, there's a right way to do things and a wrong way to do things. What we want to do is make sure to try and teach you the right way to do things, to provide you the tools and the ability. And like I said, we're here to support you and to work with you and help you out however we can. So a simple way to remember it, there's 5 W's, which are the responsible way for doing a transport. First of all, knowing who you're transporting for. Back to our types. Is this transport for a rescue, for a shelter? Is it going to an adopter? Unfortunately, there are people that will be requesting transport for personal, reasons, to move their personal pet. I've chosen not to support these at this time on Doobert just because everybody's volunteer-based, and we're trying to move rescue animals, not necessarily move people's pets. So knowing why you're transporting. Are the animals healthy? Are they just in a situation that is overpopulated and they need to move somewhere else? Or are they needing medical care? Are they going to an adopter? Are they going to another rescue? Why is the transport actually taking place? Obviously, knowing where you're transporting. This is something that we'll talk about in a minute. Is there are different state import laws, right? So when animals are coming into states, there's different rules and regulations that have to be followed. Knowing when you can transport. Are the Will the animal not be available for a couple weeks because of a quarantine? Are they up to date on their shots? Are they in a foster home? There's lots of different things, so making sure you know when that animal is available will help you to plan out that route better. And obviously knowing what you're transporting. It could be dogs, cats, there's a rat rescue signed up on Doobert, bunnies, birds. There's lots of different types of rescue groups that are out there. So it's important to know what you're transporting because that's going to be information you're going to want to communicate actually to the volunteers. So let's talk about the legal requirements. And again, don't be intimidated. Legal requirements are just things that we need to be aware of. We need to do our best to make sure that we're trying to follow the law to the best of our ability. So transporting, like a lot of other things, does have legal requirements. The USDA is actually the regulating authority for all 50 states. So the USDA has specific requirements. One of the things you'll hear us talk about is a CVI, or Certificate of Veterinary Inspection. So you'll hear terms like CVI or Health Cert or Health Certificate. That's really the legal paperwork that's required to make a transport take place. Now, in addition to the USDA requirements, which does require a CVI for transporting animals across state lines in all 50 states, there are some states that have come up with their own specific import requirements based upon their needs. Remember that the goal of the states and the state veterinarians is to prevent disease outbreak. And if we're moving animals from one place to another, and those animals have contagious diseases, obviously we're going to create a problem, and we don't want to do that. So our goal is to work as closely as we can within these laws and regulations. Certainly we don't want to be transporting any animals that have contagious diseases, because that's going to make the situation worse. There is a website which you can see there, and of course we'll make sure that all the links in that are available to you, where you can literally pull up a state regulation state by state, and it'll explain exactly what's required to move an animal into that state. Let's look at an example. So this one is actually the USDA form, and there are different forms in different states, but generally they all follow the same format. What you're doing is the veterinarian that you're working with is the one that is certifying that this animal does not have any visible contagious diseases. They're certifying that in the previous 30 days that they've actually inspected the animal, they've physically seen the animal. And as it says there, and we've highlighted, the certificate is generally valid for 30 days after issuance. So as a good transport coordinator, one of the things you're going to want to do is time things out. When the animal is available for transport, if you have the transport coming up in the following weekend, you're going to want to make sure that you get a CVI taken care of within a few days of the transport, just in case the transport falls through, something like that. You don't have to get another CVI, right? They're good for 30 days, but keep in mind that sometimes transports don't work out the way you want, weather or volunteers have things that are happening. So it's important to make sure that you give yourself a little bit of slack time. This is a piece of paperwork that, as I indicated, is required in all the states. And it's required to be able to have evidence of it on the transport. Your veterinarians, local veterinarians will definitely know about this. Most of the rescue groups have preferred vets that they work with. Some of the shelters have their own vets. They're all very much familiar with this. It's not something that is going to be a surprise to them, but it's a good thing to always ask that rescue or shelter that you're helping to coordinate with, do they have the CVI? What's the date of the CVI? Just so you know when it'll expire. Now into some legal requirements. Remember, as I mentioned, every state is a little bit different, but from the USDA website, you'll be able to actually get the details. So the one that we're showing you here is actually from the state of Mississippi. And it's just an example. Every state is a little different. It talks about all dogs being transported need an official health certificate, which is what we just referred to, the CVI. Must be free of contagious diseases, did not originate in an area under quarantine or exposed for rabies, properly vaccinated, and then something similar for cats. Now, not every state is going to look exactly the same, so it's important to recognize as you're doing some of these transports, make sure you're familiar with the state laws and regulations. In particular, up in the northeastern quadrant, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Vermont, New Hampshire, they've got some very stringent specific requirements. Illinois has got a specific import requirement that they must be going into a approved rescue, if you will. It's not too hard. We're going to try and provide some additional things for you to be able to understand what the laws are. but it's something to be aware of. And if you're doing a transport that's crossing multiple state lines, it's always important to make sure that you're checking out what's required in every state to make sure that we're doing our best to follow the laws. If we back up for a second and think about what's actually happening in our transport, who are all the parties, who are all the people that are involved in the transport? First is the transport coordinator. That's all of you. You express an interest in doing this. We're really excited to be able to have you do this. The job of the transport coordinator is kind of like the overall person, the overall conductor of this orchestra. They're planning, staffing, and executing the transport from start to finish. So the transport coordinator is going to work with the rescue or shelter group to identify the animals that need to be transported, make sure there's the right paperwork, make sure the animals are healthy, photos, stories. These are the things that are important to a good transport. Then they're going to be the ones to create and send the transport request to volunteers to sign up and cover the route. Now, honestly, what we're going to teach you about is how the Doobert system really enables this and makes this so much better. But as a transport coordinator, there's still a lot of things you're going to be doing, a lot of people you're going to be talking to. Our goal is to get you experienced on the Doobert system, and then to pair you up with rescue and shelter organizations that are looking for some transport coordination assistance. Find the right match. Obviously, everybody wants a group that they're going to be comfortable with, so we'll help you find the right match, and then we're here to support you. Remember that Doobert is a software platform. It's designed to try and handle some of these very difficult things, but we still need people involved, and people are what's going to make this a success. So in addition to what you're doing, as you might expect, there's volunteers. And there's lots of different types of volunteers, drivers and pilots who participate in the transport to take them on what we call a rescue relay transport. If you think about a relay race when you're handing things off from one person to the next, that's exactly what we're talking about here. Sometimes the transport could be 25 or 30 different legs, and those are volunteers along the way. And they're moving the animals in a rescue relay fashion from one person to the next, and things are going to happen. So that's your job as the transport coordinator, is to help make sure that everything is well coordinated, people know who to talk to, answer questions, be that point of contact. Now, the other role that we're going to talk about is a transport monitor. So the transport monitor is, for lack of a better term, is kind of like a junior transport coordinator. They're almost an assistant, so that they're very specific on the day that the transport happens. Their job is to track and facilitate a transport on the day of its execution, to work closely with the TC, as we call the transport coordinators, to check in with the volunteers, report on the progress, update, what's any changes or things like that are taking place. And then if there is a transport monitor, they're the first point of contact for the volunteers on the transport. So if the transport monitor is not available, that responsibility falls again back to the transport coordinator. Now, some groups prefer to work with transport monitors, other groups prefer to coordinate and monitor their own transports. So there's lots of flexibility in this, and it really depends on the volume of transports you're doing, the types of transports you're doing, and it depends on the group that you're working with. So just wanted to make you aware of that particular type of role. Now, if we talk about what are the high bar requirements to be a transport coordinator, obviously first it's people skills. Wow, that sounds really complicated, right? But the ability to talk to people from different backgrounds, different experiences, different lifestyles. You're going to be encountering lots of different volunteers, and recognizing that they are volunteers, appreciating them for what they're doing, and trying to help them out of whatever situation that they're in. So people skills are ultimately very, very important. Organization skills. This is probably the biggest one for me, is trying to remember that you've got a lot of moving pieces and parts, and everybody's looking to you as that transport coordinator to have all of the pieces and parts organized. So you're managing anywhere from 10 to 30 volunteers who are driving a portion of the route. So you've got to keep track of the paperwork and phone numbers, animals, instructions, etc. You'll see that Doobert really helps to do a lot of this for you, but you still got to be organized. You still got to make sure you understand, what are the areas that are going to require your attention. And finally, it's flexibility. Things change, passengers change, times change. I think from beginning to end, a transport is never going to stay the same. You might think you're going to schedule a transport for 2 animals, and then it ends up being 4, or it ends up being a load of puppies, or something changes. Things are always going to change even as you're planning the transport. Even the day of the transport, traffic is going to happen, constructions, weather delays, particularly in the winter time or during stormy seasons. So always be prepared to be flexible and know what your alternative plan is going to be. Situations are going to arise, and you can't expect the volunteers to just solve them. They're going to be looking to you as that transport coordinator to solve the problem. It's nothing to be intimidated about. Again, we're here to help you if there's a really specific situation you can't handle. But just remember that trying to be flexible going into this, having those organization skills and those people skills, communicating to people what's going on, that's really what's going to make a good, successful transport coordinator. If we just think about the transport in some basic steps, really what's happening. First is working with the sending or receiving shelter or rescue that's looking to initiate the transport. Again, we'll pair you up with one of these organizations, and so you can develop a relationship, kind of get in their cadence. There are some organizations that do transports weekly. Some of them will do multiple transports in a week. There's other organizations that might do a transport once or twice, every couple months. It really just depends. And so we'll try and work with you to find a group that you're comfortable working with and pair you up so that you can kind of fit into things. So the first step is to work with them to determine, that they're looking to transport. Next is going to be determining what animals go where on what day. For those groups that are doing more high volume, this gets to be a little bit dicey and kind of confusing. If you think about if they had 20 or 30 animals that they're trying to move in every which way across the country, you got to make sure you keep this stuff straight. That's where I think Doobert is really going to be a significant help to you, because you'll see that there's animal profiles that you can build and you can attach them to transport. Plotting the transport and breaking it into legs so that the volunteers can sign up. We're going to walk through an example here in just a moment as to how we're going to do that. And again, you'll see there's tools in Doobert to help you do this. Posting the transport so it notifies the volunteers. Managing sign up, questions, changes in routing, etc. So as you're plotting and you're posting this transport to the volunteers, people are going to come back to you with suggestions. I can do this leg, but can you make this go here? Can we start at this time instead of that time? There's a lot of balancing act of things. Your routing is going to change, your people are going to change, your times might change, but that's all part of the process to get the transport built. Number 6 is communicating with the volunteers to keep them informed while the route fills. So keep in mind that once you post it might take a few days, a week, even sometimes a couple of weeks to really fill all those final transport legs, particularly on the longer ones where it could be 20 or 30 legs. Finally, the day of the transports, you're confirming the transport is filled and you're ready to execute. And then the day of, you're going to monitor the transport, making sure the handoffs are happening, the communication is happening, everybody's kind of aware. It's quite a wonderful event when it all comes together, and everybody's always wanting more information and status updates and where are they, and I want pictures and all those other kinds of things. So that's the job generally of the transport monitor, but remember, as the transport coordinator, if you don't have a monitor that you're working with, you're going to be monitoring on the day of the transport as well. Next is helping to aggregate the pictures to share with the volunteers. You'll see that I've developed some features in Doobert to make this easy, that everybody can upload their pictures and then download them all in just a zip file. And then finally, getting ready for the next one. So celebrating that this transport was a success, that these animals got to safety, thanking all the volunteers, kind of cleaning up all the different paperwork and things like that to make sure everybody's got what they need. And then getting ready for the next one. There are hundreds and hundreds of these that are taking place every week. And you're going to be part of such a big plan to get these animals to where they need to go. If we talk about planning your transport route, so there's a couple of things. If you think about a very long distance transport, you're going to want to make sure to plan on time between the legs. Generally legs are going to be an hour to an hour and a half. It really depends. You're going to want to find handoff points that are near bigger cities or routings near bigger cities, because you have more opportunity to get volunteers. But you're going to need to plan some time in between these legs to allow the animals to have some water, to stretch their legs, go potty. And I always say it's really important to allow extra time, because people are going to want to take pictures. The volunteers are very excited, they're very proud of what they're doing, and they want to take pictures with the animals. They recognize that what they're doing is they're helping the animals to get to a better life. So give them some time to take pictures, share with one another. These are always just such fun things. You got to make sure to plan, though, as the coordinator, to allow them to happen. You're going to need to plan for overnights on some of these transports that are going hundreds and hundreds of miles. Generally, you can get only so far within a day, and you might have the animals stopping off for an overnight somewhere. There are volunteers that are willing to do this. Again, the Doobert system will help you to do this very easily. And you're going to want to plan those overnights appropriately and make sure that the animals have downtime just like the people do. So if we took an example here, if we were going from Jackson, Mississippi to Atlanta, Georgia. So if you're working with a rescue or shelter and they say, hey, we've got these animals and we've got a rescue in Atlanta that's willing to take them, here's what you're going to do, right? So one of the tools that's out there that you can use is Google Maps. Certainly you can use Bing Maps or MapQuest or any of the other mapping tools that are out there. But the example we're going to walk you through right here is Google Maps. So one of the things you'll notice, if we just punch in Jackson, Mississippi to Atlanta, Georgia, Google Maps is going to give us actually 3 different options. One is by air, right, which is not going to work in our particular case, but it's going to give us a blue route that goes from Meridian up to Birmingham over to Atlanta. It's going to give us a different route going down through Montgomery and up to Atlanta. Now, one is longer than the other, but remember, as we talked about, it might sometimes make more sense to head towards a bigger city, even if it might be a longer route, a little bit out of the way. You might be more likely to get volunteers. One of the things you'll see in the Doobert system is that you can actually see where the volunteers are located on the map, and that'll help you in plotting the best route. So next is going to be to build your legs. This today is a little bit of a manual manipulation. One of the features that I'm working on in Doobert, and eventually we'll be able to roll out, is an auto split feature, so it'll help you to do this more effectively. But today, really what you're going to do is you're going to kind of eyeball and say, all right, what is the size of the legs that I want to do? So the best way to do this is you're zooming in on a tool like Google Maps, and you're kind of looking at it and you're trying to determine where are the best handoff points. So if you're looking, again, Jackson, Mississippi, all the way up to Atlanta, one of the first stops might be Meridian, Mississippi. You can see there's some things in between, but it's probably the best next major city. So really what you're trying to do is size these legs up. Remember, you're aiming at an hour to an hour and a half, because those are the most appropriate legs for volunteers. Now, if you start going through this and you're kind of doing this manually, trying to determine, you'll eventually get to a list of legs. You've got Jackson to Meridian, Meridian to Tuscaloosa, to Birmingham, to Oxford, to Villa Rica, and then on to Atlanta. So this will cover the entire distance, and roughly these legs are almost the same, give or take. And again, remember, when you post these out, the volunteers might help you to better determine what the leg distance should be. Okay, so you'll notice in using Google, it's going to give you some of the times for each of these legs. So for the first one, it ended up being 1 hour and 25 minutes, 92 miles. Second one was 1 hour and 27 minutes. The third one was 55 minutes. Just some simple things to do. Round up your time in 5-minute increments. It's always good to pad your time a little bit. You never know. Google is very exact in terms of how long it thinks it's going to take you to get there. But you want to make sure to allow time for handoffs and things you didn't anticipate. And then certainly rounding up the miles to the 1 minute or 1 mile increment, I should say. Nobody's going to look at, complain about 67.3 miles versus 68. Some of these things will just make it a little easier. There's so much information out there, it's hard sometimes for people to recognize what leg they want to sign up with. So the more that you can simplify things, the better off. And the software will help you do some of these things. So now let's talk about our run sheet. The idea of a run sheet, it's another term you'll hear a lot. The run sheet is kind of the final list of the passengers, the list of all of the legs and who signed up for each leg. That's what the final run sheet is. So if you imagine building a run sheet, you're going to be the one to start out the run sheet, because you're going to indicate where the animals are going from and to, and you're going to build the legs and the projected times and handoff points and things like that. Things are going to fill up, and then you're going to be obviously modifying your run sheet. When you're using the Doobert software, you're going to be doing this electronically. Don't forget time zones, don't forget breaks for transfers. It gets really tricky. I haven't yet been able to build into the software the magic time zone conversion. So you got to make sure to pay attention to that. If you're going, east or west, you're changing time zones as you go. And then you're going to be building in enough time for transfers. Generally, it's anywhere between 15 and 30 minutes between handoff points. I would err more on the side of that 20 to 30 minutes, just to give, again, the volunteers time, make up for lost time, take pictures, water the animals, and give them a chance to stretch their legs. All right, so let's recap. Really not that hard, but there's a lot of information. Again, don't worry. You can watch this video as many times as you want, and we'll be sure to give you the PowerPoint. And you'll notice in the next slides that I'm going through in a little bit more detail, but I'm not going to walk you through and beat it into you. We're going to just kind of provide you the information and let you absorb it as you want to. So the first step is working with the sending and receiving shelter to initiate the transport. Remember, follow the law, plan ahead, have a plan, all those things that we've talked about. Next is determining which animals go where and what day. Are all the animals going to the same location? Sometimes these transports will split off. You'll put 10 on at this point, and then at here, 5 go this way and 5 go that way. How many volunteers are needed for each leg of the journey? Keep in mind the number of animals. We're dealing with people that are using their personal automobiles, so there's a size issue. Generally, if you have larger animals, it's probably 2 to 3 that they can get in a normal car, sometimes larger. If they're smaller, if they're puppies or if they're small breed animals, you can get many more. But how many volunteers are needed for each leg? Are you going to do an overnight or maybe multiple overnights? What are the best handoff routes? Plotting the transport, we talked about breaking into 60 to 90 mile legs. Plan 15 to 30 minutes between for handoffs. And obviously, as you're plotting and planning your transport, pay attention to things like construction. There's always construction going on. Weather can sometimes be a problem, even sometimes sporting events. If there's a college football game and you're going through a major city at that time, they're going to run into traffic that you didn't anticipate. Next is posting the transport so it notifies the volunteers. Again, Doobert does this automatically for you, so you don't have to do this. But you can also share the legs to different Yahoo groups and Facebook groups, and then manually manage the sign-up. You're going to manage the sign-up asking or answering questions, changes in the routing. You've got to be prepared to make these changes based upon the suggestions that people are having. You're not required. Remember, you are the transport coordinator, and ultimately you're the one for making sure that this is a success. So sometimes you're going to say, hey, thanks for the suggested routing, but I think we're going to stick with what we got. Communicating with the volunteers to keep them informed while it fills. Remember, it might be days or even weeks until this fills, and people keep asking, hey, is this going to happen? Is this going to happen? What's going on? So Doobert will manage the signups for you, but you're going to want to check in with people, communicate with them. Things are going to change. The routing is going to change, timings, passengers, etc. Next is confirm the route is filled. So the exciting part, once you have all of your legs covered, is to confirm the route. Doobert will automatically build a run sheet for you, or you can build your own. And then you're basically confirming to everybody, all right, we've got the legs filled. Such and such date is when we're actually going to go. And then finally, the day of the transport, monitoring the transport, making sure that communications are clear. Doobert, again, provides some functionality that you can mark a leg as completed so people can see the progress. You can start a text group chat or Facebook chat just to keep people apprised. And then finally, helping to aggregate the pictures. Pictures are just such a wonderful thing to share. It helps people to remember why they do this. And Doobert will help you again to manage this so people can upload their pictures and download them all. And then getting ready for the next one. It's always important to reflect on the good and the bad. What would you do differently if you knew what you knew now? We're going to share some of these in the Transport Coordinator group that we're going to build. And we're always here to help you. Again, tc@Doobert.com. If you've got questions, need help, whatever, that's what we're here. We're all volunteers. We're all here to support one another. All right, so now let's take a moment and let's dive into the software, and we can actually walk through some of these things and how it's done in Doobert. So what we're going to do today is I'm actually going to log you into the sandbox. This is where I'm going to provide you credentials so you can get yourself comfortable. The sandbox basically looks exactly like the live version of Doobert. The difference that you'll notice is up here, it says dev.doobert.com for development. So just be aware of that, making sure you're not posting a transport into the live box if you're just intending to test things out and to play around. But it's a fully functioning thing on the test side of things, so feel free to make mistakes, try things out, try and break things. That's how we learn. So one of the first things we'll do is we'll come in here and we'll sign in. Now I do want to point out that on the sandbox, there's actually you're going to see some features that I'm working on that we're testing out that maybe have not been released or announced yet. So just be aware you might run into some things and you go, hey, that's kind of interesting, or that's different, haven't seen that before. Don't be alarmed, you're not going to hurt anything because again, it says sandbox, and if there's issues, I'm asking you to please let me know about the issues so that we can get them resolved. So I'm actually going to back up here and start in what a volunteer sees when they log in, there is a feature that I've added that allows you to auto log into an organization. That's what's called turn on direct login. So one of the things you may want to do is if you're just interested in being a transport coordinator and you're not interested in being a volunteer, when you log in, you can actually turn on this feature called direct login, which will then from then on just log you right directly into an organization. So we're going to start with what the volunteers see, more just so you have awareness as to what a volunteer sees when they log onto Doobert. So obviously we've got the icons at the top, the different types of profiles, the different ways that the person can sign up to be involved. Since we're talking about transport, obviously we're dealing with the folks that are more transporter. As a transporter, they can specify the days of the week they're available, the type of vehicle that they have, a car, truck, SUV. They can attach photos of the vehicle. And then if we have pilots, if they are wanting to be a transporter as well, they can, again, choose the days they're available, the type of plane that they have, where they're willing to fly from. So if I go back to my dashboard, as a volunteer, I can look at my transports, right? And I can see all of the active transports that I've signed up for. Again, I'm in the test box, so you can see lots of transports that I signed up for. I can see any that are nearby. There's no nearby transports that I haven't already joined. And they can do what's called an open leg, and they can actually view all of the open transports and all of the legs in case there's one that they can assist with. But you'll notice every transport is a unique event in the Doobert system. They all have their own transport number, they all tell you where they're going from and to, they all have their own route and discussion page, and then even the icons for the different types of transports to give you an idea whether it's a pre-specified legs or whether we're letting them create their own legs. All right. And now in this case, what I'm going to do though is we're going to create a transport because we're talking transport coordinator training. So you'll notice under my connected organizations, I've got an organization that I'm going to go into here. Now when I click on that organization, I'm going to be taken into the organization dashboard. And this is where I'm going to be creating the transports, adding the animals. This is where the real power of Doobert comes in. I do keep this restricted to approved organizations. And so what we'll be doing, again, is pairing you up with one of these organizations and you'll be helping them and creating transports on their behalf. So you'll notice from the organization dashboard page, we've got a summary of all their transports. Doobert does have a fundraiser module so you can keep track of the donations and pledges. We even have a calendar, so when we create a transport, we'll notice we plot it on the calendar for you. You can actually download this calendar into your iPhone by just clicking on the iCal. If I go up across the top, you'll notice I have animals. Animals in my organization. I can manage the transfer of animals, add new profiles. You can even upload them. I'm not going to go too deep into these because we're focused more on the transport coordination. Fundraisers, again, a whole nother module that you can go play with. It's pretty intuitive. Transports is really where we're going to focus our time today for the transport coordinators. So you can see a list of the active ones, completed, canceled. We're going to add a new transportation in just a moment. There's also a way that you can add a transport via email, and we'll go through that after. And then you can save a transport in draft, you can copy from ones you've done before, and finally we'll talk about what user trips are. So let's go to Add New Transportation. This is going to be the 4 steps that we're going to do to add a new transport. So you'll see the system asks you, where is the transport going from and to? You can either type the city and state name, or if you know the zip code, you can type that as well. But in this case, we're going to type in Chicago. So let's say we're going from Chicago, and we're going to come up to Milwaukee, where I live, up to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. All right, very simple. Again, you can type in the zip code or the city, state. The pickup date, we're going to make this one for next Saturday the 8th. And we're going to do the drop-off date the same day. Now, if you're going to do a longer distance transport that went over multiple days, and it was going to arrive on the 9th, you would actually pick, obviously, the 9th for that day. These dates, remember, so this is 10/8/2016, is going to be a Saturday. So now when the system is searching for volunteers that are available, it's only going to notify volunteers that have indicated they're available on a Saturday. This way we're eliminating some of the noise for the volunteers. All right, we're going to give this transport a unique name so you know what it is. You can give it the name of the puppies, or you can give it whatever you want. Remember, we've already got the date and we're already in an organization, so you can give it a unique name. We're going to allow a transport monitor to sign up for this portion of the route. And that's really it. You notice that we have some important transport coordinator information for you to read through to make sure that you understand the volunteers that we're dealing with. In this case, we're going to do a pre-specified legs transport. So we'll select that. Now on the next page, you'll see this is where we can actually add our animals. There's no animals that I actually have, so what I can do is I can do a quick add animal. So if you want, you can go do the full animal profile. I'll show you that in a moment. But for our purposes, we're going to go in and put Maddox in here, and he's a beagle, he's a male, he's going to have a collar and a leash, and of course he's got a CDI. We hit save, and then we see Maddie is showing up, and we're going to select and add him animals that we transported on this transport. All right. The other thing, sometimes you'll have an animal that's going to go on multiple transports. By default, the system is going to hide them if they're already on a transport, but if you simply click this, you'll see these are the animals that are already scheduled on a transport, but if you need to put them on a second transport, you can certainly do that. It's very simple. In addition to quick add animals, you can also upload animal profiles. There's a sample Excel file, so sometimes groups will want to put the animals into an Excel, and then you can upload them and it'll create them all very quickly. Now we're going to hit continue. Now you're going to see it's going to take us into the transport page. This is where we're going to actually build our legs. A couple of things to point out to you. The system will keep track of the miles covered, right? So once the legs are completed, or they're signed up for, I should say, you'll see where we're going from and to on what the date is. We've got a unique transport number now that the system has assigned. All right. Now it's very simple. We're going to go in and add a leg. In this case, we have a ground aviation or overnight leg. We're going to do a ground leg. You'll notice that the information shows up down below. It defaults in the initial starting location. So we can either put in an exact address or just leave it as it is. We're saying, well, let's not start this at 6 a.m. We're going to start this transport at 8 a.m. And then Chicago's in the central time zone. And let's say that the first stop is going to be Kenosha, Wisconsin. And it'll take us roughly an hour to get there when I plotted this out. And you can specify the meeting location. And then you simply add the leg. That's it. All right. Now we can add the next leg. And say this time the system defaults in from Kenosha. It knows that we got there at 9 a.m. Right? So we're going to say the start time of this, though, we're going to bump it out here. So we're going to make this we're going to make it 9:30. And we're going to say this is going to go up to Wisconsin. And we're going to make this 10:15. And I don't know the meeting location, that's okay. You'll notice now that the system is building our legs for us. Just for fun, I'm going to add an aviation leg so you can see what that looks like. If you have a pilot that responds to you and says, hey, listen, I can fly them, all you need to do is understand from them what the locations are, what the airport codes are that they can fly out of. In this case, he's flying out of Racine, and he's flying over to Waukesha, right? 10:15 pickup, so we're going to make this 10:45, give us a little bit of time. And it's only going to take him about half an hour, right? And there you go. So now you can see the system is saying distance remaining 0 miles, right? It's keeping track of the mileage for you. One of the things you can do if you want is you can click View Map. You'll notice that it's going to plot the route on the map for you. These bubbles are actually showing you, if you zoom in, you can see individual icons of where the drivers and the pilots are. And that's what these icons are here. You can also see the airports, so if pilots are saying, hey, I could fly, is there a nearby airport, whatever it might be. So we've got lots of information here. All you have to do is click View the Map. You can also hide the map. So now we've got our legs figured out. One of the things you'll notice is there's lots of things you can do. You can edit a leg, you can delete a leg. You can actually move them around if you got them out of order, right? So the system will let you do those things. You can add additional information. So this is where you can specify specific instructions. You can upload a file with specific instructions, give them a link, anything like that. Go ahead and add that information. Right now I can save it to draft if I want, if I'm not done yet, if I'm not really sure what animals are on this transport, or I can publish it, because when I publish it, the system, as you'll see, is going to automatically email the drivers and pilots. And it's going to happen near real time. It's going to spin down through, it's going to determine who the appropriate resources are to notify, and it's going to send them an email. So it's not going to happen instantly, but the emails are going out literally right now. I'm in the sandbox, so only I'm going to get the emails. We're not going to actually notify any volunteers of this. Now you'll see my transport route is done. You can see that I've got my map open. I can hide the map. You can see I've got 3 legs. And if I view the map just as I had it, you can see each leg is specific. That one's 70 miles. This one is 7 miles. This one's an aviation leg that's 27 miles. Now what's nice about this is that you as the transport coordinator have got a couple of things that you can do. So first of all, the volunteers will see only the select leg button, so they can sign up for the leg. You as the transport coordinator, you are able to assign a non-Doobert user. So if you got somebody on Facebook, whatever, that says I'm not signed up yet with Doobert, you can actually assign them to that leg. And if you want, you can actually invite them to become a Doobert user, so the next time they can sign up themselves. A couple of things to point out on our transport. Every transport is unique, right? So you'll notice that there's a unique URL at the top. Transport has a unique number. There's an info tab, a legs tab, there's a feed tab, and a photos tab. So let's look at those real quick. There's an info tab. This is where all of the information about this transport is stored. So your information as the contact coordinator, what animals are on this transport, any specific instructions. You saw we typed specific instructions in there. If you had any documents, and then who signed up. You'll notice that their profiles will start to show up here once people start signing up for this transport. We also allowed to sign up as a transport monitor on this, right? So we explain what a transport monitor is, but somebody can actually sign up for that role to assist us. There's the legs page that we went into. This is where you as the transport coordinator can adjust things. You can go over here to select action, you can add more animals, you can cancel the transport, change the date, legs, or start over and really just walk through everything together. Then there's what I call the feed tab, for lack of a better name. The feed tab is kind of like a Facebook wall / audit trail. It's going to keep track of everything that happens on the transport. Keep in mind in the feedback tab, you can actually, just like Facebook, you can mention another user and then we'll send them an email. Right, so when I post this, we'll see that it's going to keep track of the communications, and in this case, since I mentioned the other user, it's going to send that user an email with the specific question that I was asking. What's nice about the feed tab is if you're managing multiple transports, you can always come out here and see the latest. It'll tell you who signed up, who left, anything that's changed, passengers change. It's designed to help eliminate a lot of the questions that people have. So they don't have to keep asking, hey, how many animals, or hey, did this change, or did that change? They can come out here and they can see everything out here. We've talked a lot throughout this about the Photos tab. This is where the volunteers can come attach their photos. So if everybody comes and attaches their photos either here or through the Doobert app, the mobile app, then all they have to do is click download photos, and every photo that's been uploaded, they can download as to one zip. Everybody that's a part of this transport can get the photo. Did this to make it easier for people to share their photos after. And that's it. Our transport now is automatically been emailed out to the drivers and the pilots. And then when they come in here and sign up, they'll just select a particular leg. We can sign up for leg ourselves. You'll notice that I took leg 1, so now when I select leg 1, it's going to tell me that that is covered. Right, so I'm attached to leg 1 down here. Distance is 70 miles. I can exit from the leg if I'm a volunteer. This one's filled. This way the other volunteers will know that it's already been taken. As always, if you have questions, you can send us an email to tc@Doobert.com. There's also the help support tab down here that everybody can use. They can send in a note. This will open up a help desk ticket so that we can help them figure out what they need to do. Okay, couple other things to point out, types of transports. You can see now this is an active transport, 1544. You'll see it's over here, right? You can see that because I've covered one of the legs, it's now 33% covered. So one of 3 legs are filled. And I can quickly get to the discussion of the route tab just by doing that. If we look at our animals, if you were to add a full new animal profile, you'll notice it's a lot more extensive. So if I go in here and I choose bear, there's lots of information that is not necessarily required. We only did a quick add animal just to put the basics to get the animal on the transport. But this is a nice management piece of software for rescues or shelters to be able to keep track of their animals, the medical, any transport things, any foster or forever home things right now. One other transport type I want to make you aware of is user trips. So one of the unique things about Doobert is we allow any of the thousands of users to enter trips that they're going to take. So if they're going to grandma's, they're taking the kids to college, or going on vacation. The cool thing about this is that they might be able to actually move an animal for you. So as you're working with different groups trying to determine where the animals need to go, you can actually search upcoming user trips to see animals that might be able to go on those trips. So see, the system will show you trips that users are planning to take. You can simply click on one of those. You can see where this person is going from and to, the date, the number of crates that they could fit, or number of animals, whether it's a paid transport or not, and they're driving or flying, or whether or not it's already been filled. So it's just another way to try and make this easier for you to find transports. You can also find different types of volunteers. So you can find foster home volunteers. If you need an overnight, the system, if you put in an overnight leg, will make that available. But sometimes you want to search for a volunteer in a different way. And this is something you can go through, and I'll let you go through and play on your own. But check out all these different things. It's pretty intuitive, and hopefully you'll find it easy to use. So that's it from a Doobert Transport. So finally, just remember that Doobert was designed by animal rescuers for animal rescuers. I am the creator of it, and I'm very appreciative of what you're doing to help save animals. Now that you understand it, you can obviously help us get more volunteers, get more shelters, get more rescues, get more volunteers involved. The more people that use it, the more animals we can, save. If you've got questions, you can contact us in all sorts of ways. You can use the help support button. You can send a note to support@Doobert.com, or as I talked about, send a note to tc@Doobert.com. That's a special email that we've set up just for Transport Coordinator. So thank you for what you're doing. If you have any questions, let me know, and I look forward to working with you.